and welcome to the Spawdcast. My name is Carrie Hyde, and I'm your host and your pet's life coach. Today we're going to be talking about medicinal mushrooms. So I brought with me some very good experts, and of course I brought with me Whitney Arruda. Hi, Whitney.
Hello, Carrie.
Whitney is the manager over at the spa. Some of you know her, some of you don't, but Whitney is very interested in the subject because at the spa we see so many animals that are suffering from so many medical problems and so much interesting stuff that we see, and we want to be able to help not only our clients, but we want to be able to help our listeners. And so one of the struggles that we deal with a lot at the spa, wouldn't you agree, Whitney, is the information that is out there and that's available, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times Whitney and I will be talking to our clients and then they'll say, well, my vet says no. And so
it's pretty limited.
It limits us in what we can do to help you through nutrition and those kind of things. So, but Whitney just adopted. Tell us about your puppy. She just adopted a new dog.
I did. He actually just turned 3 as well. He's a little Shih Tzu Maltese mix. His name is Cooper. He's been great, fitting in just well. And when I first got him, I switched him onto a better diet. He adjusted great, and I've had no complaints so far.
Yeah, he got switched over to a raw diet,
Yeah.
and so, but he's doing great. He's meeting all his new friends at the spa.
Oh my gosh, he's so excited to go into work every day with me. He loves it.
He's got a whole new life. So,
Yeah.
Well, this topic can be a little bit confusing, hard to understand. So I had to bring in some really good people to talk about this. Not just one, but we needed to bring in 2 people. So I want to introduce you right now to Sean Zyer. Sean, hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
We're doing great. We're doing great. And with Sean is his friend and accomplice, maybe a little bit. I don't know. Jeremy Widmann. Jeremy, hi. How are you?
I'm awesome. Thanks for having us.
Awesome. So Sean, tell us a little bit about you and how you got into, and then just kind of explain a bit how your background, a little bit about how you got into helping animals.
Yeah, that's my favorite story to tell. So just real quick, Jeremy is from Boulder Hemp, and he's part of our sister company, and we share our facility and our production together. But I started Earth Buddy with my partner, Sarah, because I had a dog that was 13. So I have a soft spot for old dogs. And I had a dog that was 13. We adopted her from a family member. And she was having cluster seizures, upwards of 20 plus a day. And basically was emaciated, not eating anything, on some pretty heavy duty pharmaceuticals, and they weren't managing those seizures. So basically we looked at everything under the sun, from diet to supplements, to try to help her and just give her some quality of life before we have to make that tough decision. I didn't think we'd have her longer than 30 days. I said, we'll just feed her whatever, give her, as much stuff that I know about from the nutrition standpoint, and we'll see what happens. Well, throughout that process, we partnered with Boulder Hemp, and we started heavily dosing CBD for Kiva was her name. And then we obviously switched her to a more whole food based diet, mostly raw, and supplemented things like medicinal mushrooms. So we were doing this as pet owners to start with. My background is in the pet food industry. I've worked for a couple different pet food companies and pet food distribution. So I got to see a lot of these products coming out. And throughout that process, I was able to kind of put a diet plan and a supplement plan that really helped her. We ended up reducing her seizures down significantly just through diet and supplements.
Nice.
And we kept her around another 1.5 years. And I think every pet parent goes through this process with an old pet, is you just want to give them some quality of life. And we talk to pet owners every day. I mean, I just got off the phone with one before this call about just giving them some comfort and kind of erring on the side of, we want to do what's more natural for them, especially towards the end, because it's already stressful enough, and a lot of pet parents go through this decision-making process. And so that's kind of why we started the company, as pet owners and pet lovers, and we specifically have a soft spot for old cats and dogs.
Oh, awesome. Awesome. And with you is Jeremy. Jeremy, you have a PhD in biochemistry, am I right?
That's right.
That's amazing. That's
wow, good for you.
That's why we brought the 2 of you guys together on this show, because that's one of our biggest struggles as pet nutritionists who see these animals every day. We're inundated with, well, you don't know what you're talking about, and you don't have the science, and you don't have all of this. So tell us a little bit about your company and what you do and how you got into it. I know you have a little dog sitting on your lap. Who is that?
Yeah, this is Max.
Hi, Max.
Hi, Max. He's cute.
So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into, learning about mushrooms and.
Sure, yeah. My background is in biochemistry. I studied human and microbial genomics, comparative genomics, so lots of big data. We all know about sequencing of DNA now, and we get gigabytes of information. And my background is taking large amounts of information that are complex and trying to make it understandable and digestible using software tools and whatnot. So after my PhD, I started in a startup company that was doing cancer diagnostics. So we would develop tests to query your tumors or your DNA to see which mutations are associated with what type of cancer, and that helps to hone in on the proper therapy and treatment for various cancers. And at this point, everybody knows somebody that is battling cancer or has, and it's really it's the leading cause of American deaths, beat out heart disease. So it's significant. And so I spent several years working in that field, but the thing that really struck me the most is we were diagnosing a problem, but we weren't working on prevention. And throughout my experience with cannabis, that's what our goal is, to have preventative measures and have a lifestyle that can prevent these issues leading to chronic illnesses, like cancer specifically. So most of these chronic illnesses that we have names for, cancer and autoimmune diseases, et cetera, are very commonly associated with chronic inflammation. So if your cells are always on red alert all the time, it's multiple issues that are happening. You don't have the opportunity to fix the issue because it's if you imagine, and when you're in a constantly inflamed state, mistakes can happen in the cells. So you can have mutations leading to certain cancers. You can trigger your immune system to attack itself, not being able to tell the difference between an actual infection and your own cells, et cetera. So that really struck me as we have all of these mutations that are associated with cancers and diseases. How do we prevent that accumulation rather than treatment, which is very important? How can we work on prevention? And that was what really led me to cannabis and to growing hemp. So back in 2017, we moved to the current Boulder Hemp farm, and it's here in Longmont, Colorado, just on the foothills. And it's a beautiful plot of land, organic soil, and we can grow our CBD here. So we have all organic practices. We do our own extraction and formulation and everything. So it kind of started with, how do I move from diagnostics to prevention? And specifically working with some folks in my family. My little cousin, she was 21 years old and had lymphoma. She was battling that. My grandfather recently passed to Parkinson's, which he was struggling with for almost 18 years. And I saw the regression of these neurodegenerative diseases and these chronic inflammatory diseases. And that was really what got me interested in going from a corporate biotech to being a farmer.
That's a big jump.
That's a big jump.
Yeah. And you're happy to be here?
Yeah, I mean, it's my dream.
Yeah, because now we're helping prevent and
making a difference.
And cure, making a difference. That's not that, in the other way isn't, but it feels a little bit like you see the results, right?
Yeah.
You can start to see the results. Yeah. And so now you two work together, right? Working on, formulations and those kind of things, correct?
Yeah, so it's funny. The way I found them was just through mutual friends. So I met Jeremy in Boulder Hemp. In the process, in 2014, 2015, there was this flood of CBD products that kind of hit the market, and you had no idea about sourcing, how it was made, how it was processed. And I started asking questions of these companies because I was in the pet industry and I was seeing them on shelf level at retail stores. And I couldn't get a lot of answers that I felt comfortable with. I mean, we're in Colorado, and just like California, we have a really strong medical marijuana and recreational program here. And so you're not that far removed from cannabis. So when I met Jeremy and the folks at Boulder Hemp, I knew right away that I can get solid answers. Our sourcing was going to be solid, and there wasn't any fluff. We're going to follow, what the research is telling us.
Right.
And I can go to Jeremy and say, hey, I'm really interested in medicinal mushrooms for pets. I mean, would this actually work in conjunction what we're doing with the CBD? And we workshop that, and we work it out with our own animals because I have a bunch of special needs animals. And to Jeremy's point when he was talking about cancer, I saw a stat on pets alone. I think 50% of them are getting cancer.
It's actually higher than that.
You probably would know better than me.
Yeah, it's getting pretty high. So there's different stuff, but I've heard as high as 80%.
Jeez.
So of dog, and I would agree with the 80% mark because we see so many dogs a day. We'll see 60 dogs a day, and it's constant cancer. So it's definitely there. So let's it's funny because, and I think you were one that went on, I put out something saying I was going to do a topic on medicinal mushrooms, and a bunch of people wrote in like, oh, we're going to get high with the dogs. We're going to start. So I think we need to define what we mean by a medicinal mushroom and a hallucinogenic mushroom. So let's start there. Let's define that, what we're talking about before we have all these dogs running around, doing some weird stuff. Can you help us out there a little bit?
Yeah, Jeremy?
Sure. So mushrooms are part of the fungi family, and there's thousands and thousands of different sorts of mushrooms. So the ones that we work with are what we would call medicinal in the sense that, and some of them are gourmet. They're edible medicinal. Medicinal in the sense that they have compounds in them that are beneficial to humans and to pets, to mammals. So a lot of these mushrooms, I'll address the psychedelic. These are non-psychedelic mushrooms. Totally legal, and you can get them, anywhere. Some of them you can get at your grocery store, and some of them you can get on, different places that's herbal shops.
Right.
Some of them grow only in the wild, and some of them we can cultivate. And then there's techniques that we can use to get the medicinal benefits of the ones that only grow in the wild. So what we were looking for specifically when we were trying to combine these mushrooms with the benefits of the hemp CBD extract was ones that promoted cancer cell death or apoptosis. So a lot of these mushrooms have compounds in them that'll detect cancerous cells, detect malfunctioning cells, and tell them to kill themselves and recycle the cell materials. So it's a beautiful way that nature's provided to identify some cells that are malfunctioning.
I'm sorry, the compound in certain mushrooms will actually identify a cancer cell, and then
what it does is we have animals have, and lots of organisms have, the pathways in their system that have a detector that says this cell is not right. We know cancer cells are typically uncontrolled growth, right? And the reason why that's bad is at some point you need the tissues to stop growing, and there's other mechanisms of how these cancer cells just malfunction. So we're constantly bombarded with things that can cause DNA damage, and DNA damage in some cases does lead to this cancerous cell growth. So we have pathways, and we have proteins, and we have enzymes that handle the fact that we can accumulate these cancer cells. So what these various mushrooms do is they have compounds that turn on those pathways, and they promote these enzymes and these proteins that can go and detect cancer cells and destroy them. So it's not necessarily that the compound does the detecting, but what it does is it flips on these switches for these pathways that help combat cancers.
That's crazy. It's so crazy to think of what we have
Had
been
around
missing
for so
out
long.
on. I know we've been missing out on this for so long. I think where the confusion is why I wanted to bring up, because so many times when I suggest mushrooms to a client or anybody, they instantly think about psychedelics and stuff. And I think the reason why is because now we use THC and CBD and all of these things. And I think they think, that my dog's going to get high off of the mushroom as well. So we've already identified for our listeners that we're not using those. But is there any chance that a mushroom in high quantities can cause that? Because sometimes they say, if you do THC in a low quantity, this happens, but if you keep going, you can start to get any kind of effects of it that would be that. Can you eat too many mushrooms and it cause psychedelic problems?
So if you're, I guess the short answer is if you're eating the mushrooms that don't contain the psychedelic compounds,
Hallucinogenic compounds.
So no.
Hallucinogenic compounds, then they're not going to, some large quantity isn't going to create that. So we know specifically which mushrooms. We source them from United States or fully USDA organic facility. And so we know what's going in there. So it's like anything, you don't take too much of anything. You can take too much water. So you have it specifically dosed for what it is, but it's very safe. The margin of safety is great. And you're not going to take too much lion's mane and have some psychedelic effect.
Okay. I just want to make sure, because I know people panic a little bit.
They just don't understand. There's different kinds.
Yeah, and they're like, oh my gosh, my dog's going to get high. So what, Sean?
Carrie, in regards to just like taking too much mushrooms, there is some reported feedback. We haven't heard this on ours because ours are really precisely dosed and there's not a huge amount of volume, but I have heard of like just the mushroom powders. If you use too much of them, it can cause some digestive upset.
Okay.
But that would be using like a really large amount, like a volume of mushroom. But that's
I can eat too much broccoli and get an upset stomach.
Yeah.
I think we're just, but that's good to know. Like if you gave too much, you're going to get some upset stomach, but you're not going to get, So it's important because we start talking about this and then people are like, oh my God, animal people think that if the slightest change in their intestines and diarrhea means the dog's dying. Yeah. And they rush to the vet and then the vet does millions and millions of tests and thousands of dollars. So it's good to know that is the side effect that you guys have seen from too much mushrooms is diarrhea.
Just an upset stomach.
Yeah, and even there is some constipation I've heard if they're using too much. But I mean, flipping that on its head, you were asking about the concern with pet parents. But I think one of the things I always talk to pet parents about is like take all the benefits that we see with these mushrooms that we'll talk about eventually, but they just have a full macronutrient profile. They have protein, fats, carbohydrates.
Really? See, I did not know that.
Yeah, so they're a food, and if you look at all the mushrooms that we use in our products, all of them are edible. I think lion's mane is a meat replacement for a lot of vegetarian and vegans. And you can saute that with some butter and some garlic and probably have a nice meat replacement. So a lot of these mushrooms are already being eaten all over the world as a food source and a protein source, especially if you're like vegan. So if we just take all the real awesome benefits out of it, we can just say, hey, this is a really good food source. And, obviously cats and dogs aren't partial to, a fungi, but still just explaining the basic benefits of it and what is actually in them.
What's actually in what?
In the mushroom.
In the mushroom? Yeah. What kind of mushrooms? I'm familiar with lion's mane. It's a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful mushroom. But what other mushrooms do you like? Well, let's stick with lion's mane. So when we're talking about lion's mane, what benefits does that particular mushroom have that you've seen or know? Or I know you said there's some studies. There's probably a lot more studies on lion's mane than any other mushroom, right?
There's actually a lot on a lot of these common medicinal mushrooms that we have in our products, and then a lot beyond that.
Yeah.
It's a significant amount of solid research on that. So, yeah, none of this was a really like a shot in the dark. We have a lot of resources to be able to say that this mushroom has shown these benefits, and this is the dosage that these benefits were seen at. So there's mountains of research behind it, which is also very nice to see.
So you mentioned about the mushrooms attacking cancerous cells. What other benefits do some of the mushrooms have, like lion's mane?
Right.
Lion's mane.
So do you want to talk about which ones we have?
Yeah, I was just starting with lion's mane. So again, I'll relate it to pets because that's what we're kind of focused on. When we thought about Kiva, my seizure dog, and I think about old pets like Max, and our pets go through the same things we do, but much faster. So they're aging faster than us. So how do we, help them with these age-related illnesses that we go through and they go through? I love, veterinary medicine. I think a lot of it does a lot of good, but at the same time, a lot of pet parents want something more natural when their pet gets old, and they're like, hey, I've ran them through the gamut. I have a cancer dog right now at home. I've spent a ton of money on veterinary support, and at this point, it's just a quality of life thing. So when we looked at lion's mane, I really like it for the support of the brain. So if we think about cats and dogs, as they're aging, they get a little bit of senioritis too. And what they've shown with lion's mane specifically, and maybe you can speak on this, is just how it supports cognition. And if we think about a pet aging, I would like to get out in front of that personally, knowing what I know now with my younger dog. And because we know that it has supported cognition in these Alzheimer's patients and helps with forms of dementia, our cats and dogs get that too. So why not give them the same benefits?
We see it in dogs all the time.
Yeah.
We get these dogs that have been coming to us for a long time, and then all of a sudden they're sitting in the middle of our daycare room just kind of like
looking around.
There's something off. There's something not right. And what's sad is sometimes the owners don't even notice it, because the dog goes and lays down most of the day and they're not up walking around or doing anything. So they don't even know that that's happening.
Right.
So you think it works really well as a preventative for that?
I like it just to keep the brain healthy. I mean, we can't give them enough of kind of these whole food natural products to help them with these age-related illnesses. I hear it a lot with cats too that have tried it. We get a lot of old cats because they live longer than dogs mostly.
Yeah.
And, we have an 18-year-old cat customer, and they said that their cat had everything wrong with it. And now the cat is doing cat stuff, like waking up in the middle of the night, running around, jumping on stuff, stuff
pushing
that
stuff
the
off
cat
the counters, like cats do.
Exactly. But it's always in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I know that is the one thing about kitties that can be a little challenging. They like to play at night. So lion's mane. You know what? You told me a story the other day about the caterpillar mushroom. I just think that's the most interesting mushroom story thing ever. Tell us.
Yeah, so you're talking about cordyceps mushrooms.
I didn't know.
I was using medicinal mushrooms and just whole food mushrooms just from like a health and wellness standpoint for myself prior to using them on my pets. But I knew that there's no differentiating factor in that. I could still give it to my dog. But I was using cordyceps from a workout standpoint just because I don't like, a lot of workout supplements have tons of caffeine and a lot of junk in them. And I was taking cordyceps because it really helps with your endurance and your workouts. I love that mushroom. And I guess the story, and maybe you can help me with this, is they discovered it by finding these mushrooms growing on the backs of caterpillars, I believe.
Isn't that crazy?
And so they basically grow on the backs, and like cattle farmers were seeing the cows actually eat those mushrooms and getting a little pep in their step. So, trial and error, farmers see that their cows are getting a little benefit out of it. They started putting it in their tea, and they realize they get a sense of vitality through that, and get a little energy boost themselves.
Oh, that's cool.
You know, we learn from these traditions and these Eastern medicines, and it's a lot of times through just, you know, seeing what's out there in the field.
It's such an interesting mushroom. So I did, you know, of course, I'm doing a little bit of research, and so I want to see that one because I know lion's mane is so beautiful. So I looked, and they look like little stalagmites coming off of they're just a straight, because everybody thinks when you picture a mushroom, you picture, you know, the top and the stem, but these little mushrooms look like little stalactites coming up off these little caterpillars. And when we do the YouTube, I'll have the pictures of it. Oh, there it is. There it is. I don't know if they can see it. So yeah, so see how it grows up out of we have a picture of your little stalactite. I don't know if you guys can see it, but it'll be on our YouTube. But they grow out of these caterpillars. And they're good for, what did you say? Oh, for endurance.
Yeah, well, you could probably speak a little bit more on the benefits of cordyceps, because there's more than just, you know, using it for a workout supplement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So some of the cordyceps, we use a cordyceps militaris. It's called. It looks like a little Cheeto growing out of a caterpillar. It's pretty funny. So it promotes secretion of adrenal hormones. So, you know, the hormones that come out of your adrenal gland. And then also it increases the mitochondrial function in your liver.
Oh, wow.
So, you know, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell.
Yes,
That's where you
yes.
get ATP. So it helps you metabolize things in your liver. It helps generate ATP. It's helping secretion of adrenal hormones. So that's where your energy comes in. There's some cool reviews that I was looking at recently about all of the mushrooms that we have, and all of them have some sort of anti-cancer ability, which is just remarkable across all
mushrooms?
These very different mushrooms.
Wow.
And then cordyceps also has some antiviral properties as well as a number of these other mushrooms. So what it does is it has compounds that prevent viral replication. So one thing, you know, Sean kind of talked a little bit about his discovery of medicinal mushrooms, and I think both of us were on a similar, supplemental path, is sticking with the natural, let your food be your medicine. And I'd been taking it because of the Parkinson's in my family, and also the immune boosting properties of these mushrooms. And I haven't been sick in like 3 years since I started taking them. It's remarkable. And if you feel a little bit of that scratchy or inflammation, double the dose, and absolutely remarkable in how they promote the immune system. So that's another cool thing about most of these mushrooms have immune benefits, and most of them have anti-cancer benefits. Cordyceps is special in the energy.
Yeah, yeah. So let's go to the farm, right, where your farm is. Do you guys have a bunch of caterpillars running around? Like,
Well, again, like in the caterpillars.
like if I go there, is it just going to look like, you know, can we put music to it? What's going to happen? How are you getting your mushrooms?
Well, Jeremy, let me further that question. Would you go over like how they grow it on mycelium, and instead of growing it on caterpillars is kind of what
right.
I think mycelium is a fun topic to kind of lead into that.
Yeah, so maybe to help with this, I can just run down the ones that we're incorporating in our products.
Okay.
And how each of those are grown. So we have an Agaricon mushroom, and what an Agaricon is it's called a conch mushroom, where it looks like a big kind of beehive, and each year you can see it forms a new layer, and it's a very slow growing mushroom. So you can have some that are decades old. They don't grow fast, and they're not very prolific. So that's not something that we would responsibly be able to harvest from the wild. But what we can do for a mushroom like an Agaricon, where you can't harvest a lot of them to provide, for our product line. But what we can do is we can take one of these Agaricons, we can culture it. So we can take some of the tissue and grow it out on agar, and purify that culture, and then take that tissue, that mushroom tissue, and have it grow and colonize organic brown rice. Organic brown rice is chosen because it's a grain that most everybody, in pets and humans, are able to consume without any reaction. Mushrooms love it, so they'll colonize it and consume it. So what is colonized is called the mycelium. So there's the mycelium, which is typically under the ground, or if it's paired with a tree or some sort of a tree, it'll grow in and around the tree. And then there's the fruit bodies. So, you saw the little orange Cheeto,
Right.
cordyceps, typical other mushroomy looking one, or the lion's mane's got that cool kind of hair looking
It
structure.
does look like hair.
Yeah, those are called the fruit bodies. So we're differentiating mycelium from the fruit bodies. So for some of these mushrooms that we can't, in a lab setting, grow the fruit bodies, we can grow the mycelium. We can culture it on this organic brown rice, and the mycelium also produces these medicinal compounds. So it's a really clever way that we can take something that we find in nature, find the right conditions to culture it, and we don't actually have to get the fruit bodies for all of these. Now some of the mushrooms that we have, that you can grow them in a lab setting, and you can collect the fruit bodies as well as the mycelium. So in a lot of cases, the fruit body has a higher concentration of these compounds. Okay. So it's really cool to be able to find these things that occur in nature that have such a tremendous benefit, and be able to cultivate them and provide them to folks and our animals.
That is so cool, but it would really be cool to have the caterpillars on your farm. I'm just throwing that out there.
That's right.
So what other ones are you doing? You're using? We talked, I know, about these two, but what other mushrooms? How many different mushrooms do you use?
In our blend, we're using 5. So we use Agaricon, as Jeremy just mentioned, cordyceps, lion's mane, reishi, and turkey tail. And we picked those 5 specifically just because the amount of research behind them around these age-related illnesses. We can use 15 if we wanted to, but one of the things in the process of formulating this product, Jeremy and I were looking at all these different mushrooms, and it was like, okay, I only have so much time to talk to people. Like with you ladies today, I can't go through 15 different mushrooms. So the goal was, let's pick 5 really strong ones that are very well backed with research. And then let's throw Agaricon in there because it's kind of a lesser known mushroom, but has a ton of opportunity and promise from a health standpoint. So when we found these mushrooms, we said, let's stick with 5. That could probably get, the point across of having a blend. And kind of relating this back to the cannabis side and the CBD side, we want to use more than just these single compounds. When we start going down the road of saying, hey, this one thing in CBD or this one mushroom is going to do all this magic, we really limit ourselves, and you kind of take that pharmaceutical mindset. We want to use a blend of natural products and kind of provide this, this full body support, as opposed to saying, hey, this one thing is going to do all this magic.
Right. No, I think that's a really good way to understand it, because our body isn't just made up of one vitamin, right? Or one mineral, or one protein, or one of anything. So blending and as a nutritionist, I talk all the time about rotating the diet and making sure that you have all of everything that you need. So I'm glad to hear that you're doing that, and you're finding some success in it, and making sure that the animals. Out of curiosity, though, is there a mushroom that you have found to be beneficial for allergies in dogs or cats?
Yeah, and you can speak on this too. I like the reishi and the cordyceps.
Okay.
Specifically for myself, in Colorado, we're in this very dry, arid climate, and I don't like taking like Claritin or anything like that. Sometimes some of those allergy over-the-counter meds make you feel drowsy. The funny thing is they actually prescribe a lot of these allergy meds to pets.
They do.
The same stuff as we would take. And again, they're going to have that drowsy effect on our animals because they're smaller.
Right.
I've noticed, incredible relief for my own allergies here in Colorado. And then, I've seen it with my pets too. Dogs and cats go through these seasonal allergies. As these seasonal changes happen, I see it in the dogs too. I don't know if you see it with these guys, but it has an incredible benefit on allergies. And that's something more day to day. That's not, as some of the other stuff we're talking about.
Yeah, no, I bring that up because it's an epidemic with pets. And so, putting them on a regimen of taking these mushrooms, and I was kind of alluding to the fact, do you use a mushroom that also would be for that purpose? So it's good to know that you're using a couple mushrooms that might help with some of our clients that are having these allergy problems. I think that's probably one of the biggest things we hear is allergies. There's a lot of medical problems, but allergies is probably the most that we hear. So when you guys are compounding these all together and you're getting them out of the lab and you're putting them in there together, how are they packaged and used, and do they lose their potency over time? Is there a certain time limit when we need to use these? Or, because you hear the argument all the time, like fresh whole is better versus, compounded down. But do you know how that works? And as far as them losing any of their potency over time, has there been any studies on that?
Sure. We all know that everything is in a constant state of degradation, right? You leave anything outside for a season and it starts to fall apart, or your skin dries out and stuff. The universe isn't easy on things. So with anything, it can degrade over time. What our product is it's in a powdered format. So we have our hemp extracted. It's a solventless technique, meaning we don't use any chemicals or anything to separate the CBD from the plant material. It's a mechanical process. We just use different filters to separate out the trichomes, which contain the CBD and the terpenes and other cannabinoids from the leafy plant material. And that is freeze dried, so we remove the water. By removing the water, that makes it easier to combine and dose, but it also helps preserve it. Like freeze drying a food would help preserve it for a long time. So the same thing with the mushrooms is they're totally desiccated. They don't have any water in them, so that makes them last longer. They're in little capsule formats, so they're easy to dose for your pets. So you can take a capsule and mix it in their food, or if they eat the capsules, that's a really easy way to deliver it. And with anything, keep it out of direct sun. That breaks things down. Heat breaks things down. Yeah. So a cool, dark place with anything, but they're relatively stable, and by doing that freeze dry process, we increase the shelf life.
That's cool.
Awesome. Is it more potent? So an example would be like what are the mushrooms you get at the grocery store? Shiitake?
Shiitake.
Is it shiitake? So one whole mushroom compared to like, what is it, like a teaspoon or something? So it's more concentrated, right?
Correct.
Okay, I was just wondering, like, because we're going to be giving such little amounts of it. When I even look at some of, whatever company it is that's selling it, it might be like a little tiny teaspoon that you guys are able to extract from there and get that going. Yeah.
Yeah, mushrooms are about 90% water, so that would make sense, right? You get your one mushroom, and then the equivalent is the little teaspoon. It's because once you remove all the water and grind that down into a powder, it's the same amount of material, just that water takes up a lot of space.
Oh yeah, that makes absolute.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I didn't. Now that you say it, obviously it's got to have a lot of water in it, and so we're going to compound it down. So, Sean, I know you were talking earlier about some, other dogs and things that in your own dog. How is your dog?
He's all right. Cancer sucks, and we've done everything we could from like a typical veterinarian aspect. I have a few, anti-inflammatory drugs that I can give him to create if it's really bad some days. But, we identified that he had cancer, and, like a lot of pet parents go through, you spend a bunch of money, and at some point you're like, you know what, how many times do I got to keep running up $1,000 bill at the vet? And nothing against my vets. I have great integrative holistic vets, but it's like the vet and myself agreed we're just going to make them feel comfortable. You know, we obviously use our products on them. I try to feed them as much whole foods as possible and more fresh. But ultimately, you know, with cancer, it zaps his appetite. So sometimes I got to give him some junk food. But it's like whatever I can do to kind of keep him in there. And as long as his quality of life is still there, he still wants to go on walks. Yeah. It's just he's you know, he's got cancer, and no matter how much we want to create products that help with that, the reality is cancer is a pretty tough battle for anyone. And
I asked because
he just turned 12.
He's 12, yeah. So that's why I asked, because I know the last time I spoke to you, and I'm like, he's still going. You're doing such a great job. I love to hear those stories where the animals are making it and they're going on for years with their cancers and that kind of stuff. I know that our listeners are going to go, I'm just going to go buy mushrooms at the grocery store because that's what I'm going to do. And we just talked about the most common one that is at the store. And I'm not saying that you can't go buy it, but let's just talk a little bit, if you guys know anything about that most common mushroom. Does it have, I know you had said they all have kind of the properties, but if we had somebody listening right now that's all they wanted to do, would they get some benefits from feeding their dog that? Is this shiitake known? Does it have any?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, like Sean said earlier, there's always nutritional benefit, right? And you know, let your food be your medicine. We want to keep that mantra. That's good. There's been some cool studies on shiitake and its antiviral properties. So there's been some really cool research about how it reduces viral replication, boosts the immune system.
Yeah.
So certainly, most ones that we know to be safe and edible have some positive benefit, even if it's only nutritional.
Right.
Okay. But always organic, right? Because that's a really important thing to remember with these practices of cultivation. We're learning, and you know, again, we'll go back to why does everybody have cancer? Well, we have inflammatory compounds. A lot of folks spray their food with pesticides and herbicides, right? Yeah. There's some mushroom cultivation techniques that also use compounds that aren't organic. So be a good consumer and understand where your food and your medicine comes from, and that every step in the process there's some accountability, and you don't want to add something to your food or your dietary repertoire that is going to cause more problems. So certainly no issue with shiitakes from the grocery store as long as they were organically cultivated. And
yeah, I say that because it's
the one we know.
Someone will ultimately go do that, and I wanted to make sure those were safe, that they could eat them, and that they would provide them some kind of nutritional, if nothing else, some kind of nutritional. I also say it because I might go do it with my dog now. Like, I wonder what the dogs are going to eat.
Just to add off what Jeremy was saying, I think one of the big factors for us was having something that's sourced in the U.S. I think with mushrooms, you probably want them from the U.S. Or at least North America for that matter, just because we want to make sure that it's grown here, and there's a little bit more regulation on how you can grow things, and from a USDA organic standpoint, we want it here.
Yeah. Do all of your products combine the mushrooms with the hemp, or do you have any without? Or does it just come? I know that we talked about making sure you have a combination of everything, but does all of it have hemp in it or not? Yeah, so we have a specific product. We changed the name to basically Focus and Immune, just pointing out that it has these immune boosting benefits of the mushrooms and then the hemp. But we wanted to have this product kind of supported with the hemp side of it, just for the simple fact that, pets are getting, like we talked about it over and over, pets are going to get old, and we want them to live as long as possible. And we feel that having these blends of these natural ingredients are going to support these aging issues. Yeah. So, as opposed to relying on one thing, we'd rather rely on many and have like a nice blend of these adaptogenic or supportive ingredients, as opposed to just saying,
one mushroom or one molecule in a hemp plant is going to do all this stuff.
Right, right. Do you guys think that, I know just from some of the people I've heard talking about CBD, that the pharmaceutical companies are really going to start coming in and taking over. What do you think they're going to start doing that with medicinal mushrooms and start, or are they already using medicinal mushrooms in pill form and, doing that? Do you think that's something you might be coming up next, where we go to our doctor and they prescribe us medicinal mushrooms?
Yeah, I'll let you talk about this too, but we've isolated stuff from natural sources forever. That's how the pharmaceutical industry started, is we're isolating these compounds and then we're putting them in, pharmaceutical form or heavily concentrated forms. So I know they do that with mushrooms already. There's active compounds in mushrooms that they have some, I don't know if it's drugs or would be over the counter, but there's stuff out there with these active compounds. And then same with the cannabis side. I know they are looking at synthetic compounds and things like that, but I always go back to what the research shows and what we know is that these natural ingredients, the body responds better and knows how to handle them better. The best way to explain that is, I don't eat an orange and go, oh, I'm getting so much vitamin C. Like I feel like I'm going to absorb more of that vitamin C as opposed to going to the grocery store and buying 1,000 milligram pill of vitamin C.
Right.
So I look at it as like, I'd rather eat that orange and get all the benefits from that orange than just taking a pill and thinking that it's going to kind of do the same thing.
Right.
And I think our bodies have a hard time kind of processing those heavily refined ingredients. So I think one thing, Jeremy and I always talk about is like, how do we keep it as close to that natural state as possible? And both us and our pets are going to respond better to that. The dosages vary from product to product. And I think with our category of, we're using mushrooms and hemp, I think it's very individualized, but I think ultimately it's safer. And we'd rather err on the side of safety with our pets than anything. But do you have anything to say about like the pharmaceutical versus the natural side?
Yeah, absolutely. So it's funny that you asked this. There's one FDA-approved drug on the market from a company for CBD for seizures, and it is a full-spectrum extract. It's not an isolated molecule. So this is what I think is kind of a sign of the times and how we're getting more information and we're becoming more educated about the shortcomings of the current pharmaceutical industry, and that isolating a single molecule from nature and then modifying it in such a way that it can be patented. And that's a phenomenon that we know as these drug companies own patents on their compounds. More often than not, the natural thing was significantly more effective and it had significantly less side effects. And that's something that is very important. You can look at, if you ever turn on the television, you can see the drug ads that have a laundry list of things that you'd rather not have to cure your allergy or your restless leg or whatever the issue. I think that we're really getting more education and we're getting more information, and there's a lot of evidence to support that the most natural, the most maintaining either the plant or fungus in its full repertoire of compounds is more effective, and the margin of safety is significantly better. So there's a good chance we'll see a shift of that in the pharmaceutical industry. But what I like to see is, step by step, where's the accountability in the process? And that's what we can offer, is we can say our land is cultivated in this way. We can show through a series of tests that there's no compounds in it that are undesirable, pesticides, herbicides, heavy metals. This is something we test for every batch and everything. And that allows the consumer to say, I know where this came from. I know that each step of the process, it's clean and pure. And the margin of safety and efficacy is significantly better as far as we can tell.
Yeah, that is such a good answer, because I see this, I could see in the future that all of these things that more of our naturalists are wanting to use are going to become in our pharmaceutical companies. And, we saw that happen, just Bayer aspirin took willow bark and turned it into aspirin. But the patent that you're talking about is such a good way to explain it, is they're going to tweak it just enough, because you can't patent a mushroom just because it's a mushroom. But if you tweak it enough to make it your own recipe, then you get a patent on it. And that's where the money becomes so incredibly, that's why I think that the pharmaceutical companies are right on the verge, and why I wanted to talk about it, because I don't want people to start thinking, oh, well, this one's cheaper and this one is actually sold by my doctor and therefore it makes it better, when in fact they need to understand the differences between them. So that's good to know your guys' product is not being created in a way that would be patented and being able to sell for millions and billions of dollars. That's awesome. That's why I reach out to Sean, because I know that Sean's integrity is going to stay right where it is, and it hasn't changed. I was happy to hear after I spoke with him. Well, I had spoke with you maybe 2 years ago, I think it was. And I always worry, because I've been around a long time. 36 years. I've seen companies start out with integrity. We're only going to do this right. I mean, I've seen it in dog food companies. I've seen it in every company out there. And then the next thing you know, it's not that way anymore, and they get their name out there. So that's why I brought you guys on the show. So keep doing what you guys are doing, and you're making such a big difference, Sean. It's so great. It's so great that you have this support of each other to kind of bounce off of each other and do this. Did you guys have anything? Sometimes I worry that I miss something that is super important that needs to be said. Is there anything else that we should cover?
No, I think we covered a lot. I think or at least like from the pet side, I think our main goal is to continue to add these other natural ingredients along with our hemp base. With us having, the full farm to table kind of experience with the hemp side, we want to start introducing more and more of these, Eastern medicine type products that are natural and super safe for pets. We started incorporating things like colostrum with our hemp and some really cool stuff that we have on the horizon. Not to be like an infomercial, but it's just, we're going to continue to add these natural ingredients to say, yes, we do use CBD in a lot of our products, but that's in addition to XYZ, because we really feel that there's a lot of other things that can help our pets thrive.
Yeah.
As the pets mature and get older, we want to be able to support them in many different ways, whether it's from a gut health standpoint, an immune system standpoint, or just regular, I got achy joints from, running around on the farm like Max does here.
Chasing those caterpillars. I'm sorry, I can't get off the caterpillars. I can't. I just think it's just
brilliant. I've been trying to figure out how to put them to work.
Right?
Lounge all day and run around, so we'll get them harvesting for sure.
Yeah, and they could do some work. The only thing I don't know, wasn't able to research is, are those specific caterpillars, or could they even live in Colorado? Is it too cold? Maybe they can't even live there.
It's most of the time it's the humidity. It's really dry here, so you walk around places that are really humid, and or after any rainstorm, you see a bunch of mushrooms pop up. It's because said that 90% water, and they like the humid environment. So
yeah, you just made me think of something. What about the mushrooms that come up out of the ground? I guess they all come out. That was a dumb question, but you know what I mean. Like in your garden, the average garden mushroom that we see, are those toxic to dogs? What are those?
Well, beware of the little brown mushroom, because more often than not, it's not something you want to consume. So, in general, unless you're an expert mycologist or have a network that can help you identify things, it's not a good idea to pick and eat those wild mushrooms. There's thousands upon thousands of different mushrooms, and a lot of them aren't safe or edible. So better to trust where it's coming from, know your source, positively identify, and the ones in the garden, more often than not, are probably not going to either not make you feel good, or they could be toxic. So, but a benefit is most of the time, most animals aren't going to. They have senses, and they understand that not to eat certain things, and I don't see mine grazing on mushrooms too much. So
Right. It's important to talk about because I just don't want people to be out on some hike somewhere and be
Well,
like,
they talked
oh,
about mushrooms. Go ahead and eat it.
Yeah, like you got to be careful out there. There's all sorts. How many different varieties of mushrooms did you say there were?
Thousands.
Yeah, thousands upon thousands, and there's a lot of imposters too. So you might find something that looks like that turkey tail that has the health benefits, but it's there's a lot of different mushrooms, and a lot of them look the same, and some of them are fine, and some of them are toxic. So know where you source them.
Yeah.
And if you go out in nature, make sure you know what you're doing before you start staying up dinner.
So I always put in all our show notes ways that people can get in hold of you, contact you, get a hold of your company. But just really quick, can you guys tell us a little bit about how Sean, how do we get a hold of you?
Yeah, earthbuddypet.com is our website. All our social media is at earthbuddypet, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, all that good stuff.
Okay.
We try to put out really good content that is educational, and we try not to spam people to death or anything. So
good.
Our YouTube channel has a whole host of educational videos on all the stuff we talked about today. So if they're looking to get more information, they can go to our website or our YouTube, and if they don't want to look at my ugly mug too long, go to the website. So that would be a couple of suggestions to find us. But yeah, they can reach out to us if they have any questions, any specifics. That we're fully transparent, and that's one thing that Jeremy and I are really proud of, is that there's nothing proprietary about us. We're very open about what we do with the products, and so if anybody has any questions on dosing, what product to choose, we're more than happy to help in that regard.
Awesome. Jeremy, how do we get a hold of you?
So you can check out boulderhemp.com.
What is it? Say it again. Oh, Boulder Hemp.
Boulderhemp.com, and our social media is all Boulder Hemp. And to touch on maybe a little bit of a comment on the direction things are going, the pharmaceutical companies, and all this sort of thing. So the thing that keeps us going is that we have accountability in our process. We strive to have the best product possible, and we're constantly looking forward to innovate, to find new combinations of health repertoires that we can use, whether it's mushrooms or plants or beyond just the hemp. So we're always coming out with new things. We have a lot of experience, and as Sean said, we're happy to answer any questions. Total transparency with our process. You'll see pictures of the farm on our social media area, so you know where it's coming from, and yeah, it's
that's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah, constantly paying attention to what's going on and hoping we can deliver the best products for people and for our pets.
Well, God, if we weren't constantly learning and changing, we wouldn't even know that mushrooms could
be so beneficial.
Such a
superfood.
We're continually learning. There's probably so much stuff out there we don't know. Before you know it, we're going to find out that the fleas that grow on, I just think, are there all sorts of stuff growing on animals that are beneficial to us? So I'll get off the mushrooms. I'm sorry. So I just want to thank you guys for being here. It makes such a world of difference that I can have people come on that talk about the science behind it. And I know Sean said that on their website, they have all sorts of these articles they can read about the sciences that we're talking about. Obviously, we wouldn't be able to sit here and go through detail of those, but you guys have all of that stuff available if somebody wants to talk to you about it, correct?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. So Whitney, any more questions?
Yeah, can you just real quick give me just like what the 5 mushrooms were again that are in your little mix?
Yeah, so in our blend is Agaricon, cordyceps, lion's mane, reishi, and turkey tail. And all of them kind of have their own specific benefits, but to what Jeremy said, they all do a lot of the same things too. And we picked those primarily because of the amount of research and promise that they have from a health and wellness standpoint. So not just for your old dog or your old cat, but for your 3 or 4 year old dog or cat.
Awesome. Well, guys, thank you so much for being here.
Yes,
and
thank you.
I will get all this information to you soon. So, okay. Thanks for listening. Make sure that you follow us on all our social media accounts that we have. We have a YouTube channel. You can follow the Spawdcast anywhere you get your podcasts from. You can also follow the Spa on Facebook. It's THESPAW. And we'll talk to you later. Thanks. Bye, everybody.